Hey, this is Pat Miletich, UFC Hall of Famer, and you're listening to It's Me Speaking to You with host Jeffrey Wilson.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of It's Me Speaking to You. I am, as always, your ever-faithful host, Mr. Jeffrey Wilson, coming to you live and direct for the final time from the Gateway to the West. We are moving down the road, folks, and today, what better way to close things out here in St. Louis with somebody I've watched absolutely all my life as a huge professional wrestling fan. Man, this guy has quite a list of accolades. Two-sport All-American in college, 1971 NCAA champion in wrestling. This guy, I mean, he's done a bit of it all, man. Went on to win the WWE championship. This guy's got quite a few stories, and we're hopefully going to hear what he's been up to. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Backlund, Mr. Bob Backlund, how are you, sir?
It's my pleasure. Everything is great. Having a beautiful day, and really looking forward to coming back to St. Louis on September 9th.
September the 9th for SICW and Herb Simmons. Great promotion. The guy's one of the last Mohicans of the original old school wrestling promoters, dating back to the Larry Muchnick or Sam Muchnick, Larry Matisick, wrestling at the Chase, as you well know. Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to it too. Like I said, that's very interesting. You're two-time sport All-American in college. Obviously I love doing, as they call, show prep for these interviews. So I, obviously listened to some of your other interviews, etc., and found quite a few things very fascinating, sir. You didn't consider yourself necessarily the best wrestler in the world. You kind of had to grow into your athleticism. And I found it interesting, like you said, you did a little bit of all the sports, and because you didn't want to go home. I found that fascinating. Can you illuminate a little bit on that, sir?
Well, I had a father that wasn't very good at drinking, and home wasn't too much fun. I went out for sports just so I wouldn't have to go home, and I got beat up. I was always started at the dirt bottom. When everything I did, I was the worst football player, the worst wrestler ever in Minnesota, and I'd get beat up, but it was better than going home and kind of putting up what was at home.
Yeah.
And then later in my life, everything, I got beat up so many times, it started kicking in. And I started improving a little bit. And I got some big rewards for working hard and training hard and just keep going. And like they always say, never capitulate. Yeah.
Well, and I find that very fascinating. Me, myself, I was kind of the runt of the litter, never really that great at sports, and really kind of, for the lack of a better term, as far as athleticism went, really kind of threw in the towel as far as really competing and stuff. But that is so true about different aspects of life, sir, and I found that very profound, in your opinion, and, you're probably right. A lot of people don't just show up just awesome at sports. You have to practice. You have to not give up. And you've taken that and kind of used that as the, mantra for your life.
Yeah. The wrestling or the football coach at Waldorf Junior College, when I started there, he brought me in, and when I ended, he said I was nowhere near the most talented athlete he ever coached, but I was the most driven person that he'd ever coached.
And self-driven. Absolutely, and that could make up for definitely a lack of talent. Another thing that as a part of your mantra of like never give up, never say die, I found it very fascinating. Tell us how impactful. I'm not sure what exact match it was, but it was a high school wrestling loss. That your parents were there. Excuse me. That really impacted you.
Yeah, that was my senior year, that was my junior year in high school, and I just learned earlier in the year. I learned something that hard work. I really got a big present for working out hard, and I thought I was ready to go in the world and succeed. And we got to the finals. I was undefeated, and I was wrestling a guy that was a second team wrestler. And Vern Gagne, he said on TV that I was going to be the next champion of the 175-pound weight class, and everybody was telling me I was going to win, I was going to do this. I already beat two guys that already beat him, and I never really understood about how important the mind was in my competition as far as the athletics. And I found out that if you don't have your mind right, you're not going to win anything. I went out and the guy got 5 points on me right away, and he beat me. And he was a second team wrestler. He wasn't even the starter on the team.
Wow.
But it was because I didn't have my mind right, and I was there was a big crowd. Everybody thought I was going to win, and then I let everybody down. And when I started walking towards my mom and dad and all the people that came there from Princeton, Minnesota, I started crying. I turned around and walked out of the building. I couldn't face them.
Well, a tough life lesson that you've carried with you.
Yeah, and then Monday when I went back to school, I couldn't even remember my combination to my locker. That's how bad it was. The worst thing that ever happened to me. But in the long run, it was the best. It taught me that you don't even want to know the guy's name. You don't want to know his record. You don't want to know where he's from. All you had to know is that you had to go out there at your best and beat the guy.
And that's very true, and I've heard that. I mean, I don't know how much you follow mixed martial arts at all, but I mean that's Conor McGregor, even though he lost, that's something that I've heard him say, and other martial artists and other boxers and other people kind of in your lane say it's not really about the opponent. It's really a battle within yourself.
Yes, it's in the mind. It's in the mind, and I learned a lot. I learned something about peer pressure. I learned that hard work paid off. The mind didn't really enter my mind when I was in wrestling prior to that one match when I was a junior in high school. But it really was a good thing to have happen. It paid off. It paid off later on, and I needed to learn it, and then I learned it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I said, a tough lesson that definitely shaped your life. So, tell me the move to go pro in 1973. What prompted that? Was that something that you kind of knew that was going to be a natural evolution for you to go from amateur to pro wrestling?
No. I played 1 year semi-pro football. I had a friend that was my weightlifting partner when I was in 10th grade. His name was Ross Johnson. And in our scene, and he had big dreams. He had big dreams, and he wanted to play football and this and that. And we were working out together, lifting, and I was getting stronger, and he was getting weaker, and we couldn't figure out why. He had leukemia. He died just after we graduated from high school, and I thought Ross and I would be friends for the rest of our lives. Anyway, I wanted to make his goal. I went out. Ron Earhart at North Dakota State University, I was recruited by the wrestling coach, and he didn't. He told coaches that I didn't want to play in professional football. But anyway, I went to Mundelein, Illinois, and I played football there, and I tried to see if I could make it into the pro football. And there had been guys that had been there for 10 years, and on my way home from when the season got over, I was driving home, and I was thinking about that, and I'm not going to wait 10 years. And I was thinking about switching what I was going to be doing. And at North Dakota State University that year, I met somebody that was very interesting at the YMCA in Fargo, North Dakota. His name was Billy Superstar Graham. He came over and talked to me a little bit, and I talked to him, and he asked me, "Did you ever think about getting into the business?" And I said, "No." But on my way home, I started thinking about that. You know what? By the time I got home, I had myself convinced, let's try the professional wrestling business.
Well, especially back then, Bob, as you know, Dusty, there was a lot of people, Wahoo, several who gave up the professional. I don't know if Dusty was really professional, but he was kind of angling toward it as well. But there was just more, for the top guys, there was almost more money in wrestling than football. I remember Jim Cornette saying way back in the day, some of the most top paid people in the world or in the country at the time was professional boxers and professional wrestlers.
Yeah, but at the time, I wasn't thinking about money. I was thinking about just getting out there and doing it.
Right? Yeah.
I didn't even Vince McMahon. We shook hands. We didn't say one word. Vince McMahon Senior. Yeah. We didn't say one word about money. We just shook hands, and that it worked very well.
Well,
he was a very honorable person, too.
Yes, you speak very, very glowingly of Vince McMahon Sr., and that kind of jumps us to, I guess you got into WWF in 1976?
WWF, and that was I got in there, and it was in 1977.
Oh, okay.
And it was I got the championship on February 20th of 1978, and I came in, started doing. He was introducing me on the TVs, trying to get me known by the people for about maybe 8 months before that date.
Well, and I find, it's, obviously, kayfabe's over and we all kind of know somewhat of the inside baseball. I found it interesting that, Vince Sr. was obviously took the belt off of Superstar and wanted to go in a more kind of All-American Boy direction, and he kind of got that cue a bit from Eddie Graham down in Florida using Jack Briscoe. And I don't know if this is true or not, but I mean that's what they were kind of emulate with you taking that All-American kind of boy. Because it seemed like they were having, in the WWF at the time, it sounded like they were having a lot of issues with their ethnic champions, Bruno, Pedro. I mean, people were getting hurt. Blackjack Mulligan got stabbed numerous times. I mean, it sounded like, they needed to kind of cool things down as far as the heat on the wrestlers. Do you know anything about that, bringing you in as the All-American boy, taking a cue from Eddie Graham down in Florida?
No, Vince called a lot of the promoters and asked them who would be the best All-American boy to replace Bruno Sammartino with. And then I did something. I was in a car with 3 other wrestlers in Atlanta, Georgia, and they started smoking marijuana.
I heard.
And they wanted me to do it with them, and I refused to do it. And that got around in the business at that time a lot. Telling a wrestler was like telling a telephone. Right. And I walked away from them. I didn't bend. I wouldn't give in. And I rolled my window one down when I was riding around in the car, and they rolled it back up. And so I was sitting there, and I was thinking, geez, I need these guys to be my friends because they're the ones that talk to the promoters. I don't. And and I thought maybe I should fake like I'm doing marijuana with them. I decided not to do that. I decided to stick to the principle. There was peer pressure, and I wasn't going to do it. And I learned something about that in 8th grade. So I didn't do that. And every promoter knew that I turned these guys down as far as doing drugs with them. And they knew Vince McMahon Sr. had a quality that the wrestler had to be a better guy out of the ring than in the ring, as far as being a good role model for his company.
Sure.
And if I would have did the marijuana with him, I wouldn't have got to replace Bruno Sammartino. Every promoter said my name because I did that one night.
Interesting.
And Vince asked every promoter, who's the best All-American boy to take Bruno's place.
And Bob Backlund. Bob Backlund.
And I was the only one. That was the only name they mentioned.
Huh. Well, like you said, in the professional wrestling world, stories, good and bad, travel very fast. Yeah. But again, one of those kind of decisions that's shaped your life, and that kind of, when I first started watching wrestling, I was more of a TBS NWA guy, but USA would always carry the Madison Square Garden show, so I would always see you, and those were always awesome to watch. And it was, you held your belt longer, I think, anybody else. Bruno, 6 years, and Bruno Sammartino, I think, was 8 years. So you're second to Bruno as far as the longest reign goes.
Bruno was 11.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
You just obviously don't see that today. The wrestling business has changed so much. And it would, I guess, well, no. Yeah, let's stay in kind of that kind of time. So you had the belt for 6 years there, and then I don't know. What are your thoughts on the switch to the Sheik? Is it true that you didn't want to give the strap up to Hogan? You would rather give it to a legit shooter kind of wrestler like the Sheik?
No,
the Iron Sheik.
That had they just asked me the Sheik was going to be the next guy, and guys come in and they get ready to wrestle. The guy that's got the belt, they keep him coming in steady. The Sheik was the next guy coming in. I just said, and I met him in Minnesota. He was out there coaching, helping the Greco wrestling team, Coach Rice, getting ready for the games, and I knew him from out there. I just said, yeah, let's do it with the Sheik. Yeah, if you want to do it, and then they said, Vince Senior said, figure out something that way you want to do it,
Yeah, and it was it the I was just again doing show prep. Was it the club that injured the back, and when you did the Persian club, and then Sheik attacked you, and then you would how did that come about, the back injury?
You know everything. Yeah. Well, it's a business.
Yeah.
If we're going to talk business, it's a business, and I did those clubs, and it wasn't a business that nobody else could do them.
That was impressive.
But I was the only one, and I did them, and that was business.
Right. Well, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That was supposed to look like I got hurt.
Well, it was great. I was just like, I even watched it back a couple times. So I'm like, oh, this is where the back. Because I remembered, it took me, like I said, just doing show prep kind of refreshed my mind. But those weren't light. So you could have, whatever. You did a good job selling that for the wrestling term. But did it make sense to you, though? Because politically at the time, as we know, the Ayatollah and the Iran had so much heat. So enter the Iron Sheik, taking out, the baby face of all baby faces, Bob Backlund. Did that make business sense to you?
That makes big business sense to me.
Yeah.
We did something like that when I first started in Amarillo, Texas.
With the kind of the political, using like a political angle.
Yeah, I beat somebody. I beat Terry Funk for the Western Championship, and then they had a guy that was a Russian come in and take it away from me in a really rude way. And I was just getting started then.
Okay.
That was and it was sort of that with the Sheik. That was sort of mirroring what we did back in Amarillo, Texas, with the Funks.
Right. Well, success leaves clues, especially in the professional wrestling business. That you see a lot of these angles repeated. And so enter again another piece of business. Sheik didn't have it that long, but enter the Hulk Hogan era. Was that good business to you as well, or do you think Sheik should have held it a little longer?
Well, you know what, Vince Jr. Had his goals, and he wanted to do certain things, and it fit what he wanted.
Right.
It didn't fit really. I wasn't. I was Vince McMahon Sr.'s All-American boy.
Right.
Well, I was his All-American boy, not Vince Jr.'s. And
Vince had taken it.
I didn't fit into his plan.
Right. Because he obviously, as we see, took it in such a way different direction. You know what I mean? Than obviously Senior. So, what are your thoughts? Obviously you've had a lot of successes still with the WWF, and even WWE. What are your thoughts? And I asked this to a lot of the, Kamal I've had on, Jim Duggan. What are your thoughts on wrestling today? Is professional wrestling completely deceased, and we have now is just straight sports entertainment?
Well, yeah, it's entertainment, and a lot of people would like to bring kayfabe back, even the fans. But it's changed a lot, but it's still a great business. It's still, it's still kind of some of the same structure. But in the ring, the art of telling a story in the ring is gone.
Yeah.
We used to slowly in the match draw the people into the match emotionally by doing the certain steps and listen to the crowd and set a pace. And then you'd get to a peak and you'd have an ending. and it was kind of a storytelling thing in the ring that they don't have time to deal with now.
Well, now it just seems like high spot after high spot. Everybody's trying to just get their stuff in.
High spot.
Yeah, and it's there's obviously you can't do like Johnny Valentine. He can't hold a headlock for 45 minutes, but he would always say, I can't make you convince you that wrestling's real, but I can convince you that I'm real. And it's just that psychological aspect. All those guys, Jake the Snake Robert, a lot of those guys who were great at telling stories, not just on the mic, but in the ring. I think we've lost a bit of that. And like the kayfabe.
You lost it all. You lost it all.
I saw the other day, Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns are supposed to be like, these bitter enemies. Of course we know they're not, but they took pictures of those guys over in Rome in front of the Coliseum and posted it on Twitter. I'm just like, man, you guys, you're not even trying anymore, are you?
That's going a little too far, maybe. Yeah. But they do what they can do. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. What is Bob Backlund up to these days? I see you're staying busy. My brother says you can still duck walk, which is incredibly impressive. I mean, you appear to be in incredible shape. What are you up to these days, sir?
Well, I turned last August 14th. I turned 68 years old. 3 days before that, I was down in Hammonasset. It's a park in Connecticut, right on the ocean. And I went where the kids have their swings and stuff, and I was on this little platform, and I did 1,030 squats in one set.
Jeez.
My biggest number before that was 700, and I wanted to do that before I got to be 68 years old.
Wow. What do you attribute that to, Bob? Time catches up with all of us. Do you eat real clean? Are you a juice? Not when I say juicer, like fruit and vegetable juicer. Like, how do you do that?
I have a green drink right away in the morning. It's the worst thing I got to do all day.
Kale on top of kale on top of kale.
Yeah, it's got spinach, garlic, radishes, turnips, cantaloupe, and beets.
There you go, the beets. Wow, that's a nice concoction there. I might have to give that I like doing some juice, and I like switching up my little recipes. I might have to give that one a try.
Yeah, I do that every morning. I get up at 6:30 in the morning. I make one for myself, then I make one for my wife. She takes it to school, and then I run around all day doing things and trying to get bookings. I have a book that's come out, and it's a book about my life. And I had an oil business, and I sold it because of the book. I wanna go out and inspire as many people as I can for the rest of my life. I learned 6 principles from high school wrestling, and I think that I'm handing somebody an opportunity to learn something and make their life better by studying, not just reading it. I've told people don't buy it if you just want to read it, but if you want to study it, this book is valuable. If you don't, I just soon sell it to somebody else.
Right.
But I think there's an opportunity if you study it enough to be able to implement some of those things in your life. Hopefully that would help you climb the ladder like I climbed the ladder. I conquered the wrestling business because of the 6 things that I learned.
Wow, that's powerful. Well, and I noticed that a very common theme with you and your ways or your integrity. You know what I mean? It's like your word is your bond kind of thing, and you're kind of one of the last of the Mohicans too. That someone who really puts his money where his mouth is, as far as his ethics, his morals. You know what I mean? His standard that you will not capitulate on.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, and I read this book. I went through the process, and we got it published. I read the book, and I said to myself, "Wow, was that me?" I couldn't believe how it was. When you put your whole life together, it just it seemed so just about impossible to have that happen. The things that went on.
Yeah.
And I know there's a power out there that's bigger than all of us. I've had so many good things happen to me throughout my life that were miracles that I just know there's a big power that can control things out there. Yeah.
Well, when I see a lot of professional wrestlers sometime, and I on August 18th, I just turned 44, so it's just like, time is waiting for none of us. But it's like, do you? I watched, I'm a big Mark, Bob, but I watch a lot of videos and stuff, and I watched one on Luthez, and, as he got older, and he was older, and he was like, man, I had such an amazing life. I wish I could do it again. Are you that kind of nostalgic, wish you could do it again, or are you at peace with, like, kind of where things are at? You see a lot of wrestlers who traditionally and throughout time, it's very hard for them to really leave the business. And, what are your thoughts on your career and looking back on it nostalgically?
Well,
are you at peace with where you're at?
I like the wrestling business, but I love life better. I love the things that I do. I love what I'm, trying to do. I love the things that I'm trying to accomplish. And if I had it to do over, though, there's only one thing that I would change. There's only one thing I regret very much, and I wished I could go back and fix this. But I worked out hard in athletics, and I used principles, and I used standards, but I did not apply those to the academic world, and I regret that. And I messed up a lot by not working hard in school and studying and learning as much as you can. I was thinking more athletics than school, and it was a big mistake for me to do that.
Well, and I can understand that, but it sounds like you've learned, a lot of life lessons along the way that can almost transcend book learning. You know what I mean? There's a certain mechanics to book learning, and then there's real life lessons, which you obviously have plenty of. And as you travel the world and travel trying to help change people's lives, that will obviously come to bear, your life experiences, more so than your academics, I would say. Yeah,
and my thing is that I had some things that were good to me, and I had some people that helped me, and I wanna return that to as many people as I can. Somebody helped me, I'd like to be a little help to somebody else that was maybe kicking around, having a little problem.
Each one to each one. I definitely agree. So is there any social networking? Where can we track down Bob Backlund and see what you're up to, sir?
Well, I'm on Facebook quite a bit.
Okay. Bob Backlund?
It's Bob Backlund, All-American Boy.
There you go.
Or it's Bob Backlund Page. Or they can go on bobbacklundnow.com and look at the book and see what it's all about. And they can order it there. And if they order it there, PayPal sends me a email with their information in it. I send them a little letter, a little email saying thank you for the order. I'm going to sign this book the way you want me to, and then I'm going to send it to you this afternoon or tomorrow.
Very cool. Very cool.
So I don't hire people. I like to know things are done, and I like to do it right. I don't just sign where you can't read it. You know who's signing the book. And I take a whole page to do the signing.
Well, and I'm going to let you go here in a second, but a story I found very, very fascinating. A gentleman you know very well by the name of Tommy Dreamer related a story when he was a kid trying to get your autograph, and you just, whatever it was, you didn't have time or just couldn't make it or whatever. And then he wound up obviously being in the business 30 years later, and you gave him, obviously made up for the autograph, and you guys became very good friends. But, that was very interesting to him because, it impacted him in his wrestling career. I'm sure he probably passed up some autographs too, but he really made a point to really take the time and hit every kid with an autograph because of that feeling he had being slighted by his hero, Bobby Backlund. But you made it right.
Well, I try to do things the right way if I can, and then it depends upon the situation. I don't like letting people down, and I don't say one thing and do another. I stick to the way it is, and I try to treat everybody the same.
Well,
but
clearly,
I've had piles of letters where I sent somebody a return mail 9 years later.
And I'm sure that made a pile. Better late than never, right? Better late.
Yeah. 9 years later, he was on the bottom, and I never got to the bottom of the pile.
You got a lot of fans out there. So shout out again, Bobby. When are you going to be at SICW and Herb Simmons promotion again? September
9th. It's in St. Louis, and you know what? Back in the day, back in the 70s and the 80s, I was trying to, before you called, I was trying to think something maybe negative that I could say about that organization. I can't think of a single thing that they could have improved the way they were doing it. I think it was one of the greatest wrestling towns in the world. the way it was and the way the people were and the way they treated you. And when we went to wrestle there, you were going to see the best wrestlers in the world, and you were going to compete with the best wrestlers in the world.
Well, and as I got older, I didn't realize, I didn't realize what the NWA really was. Obviously, a big territory, and it was mostly headquartered out of St. Louis, and Sam Muchnick and obviously a couple other guys. But I really learned to appreciate the value of what the NWA was, and like you said, the elite level that came through here all the time between the Keel, the Checkerdome, or I think it was Checkerdome, or wrestling at the Chase. It was a great, awesome time for wrestling, and I look forward to seeing you, meeting you at Herb Simmons' outfit, and I can't begin to thank you enough for your time, sir. You are a credit to the industry.
Mr. Simmons kind of took over what Sam Muchnick and Larry Matisak were doing, right?
He certainly did. I
hear that. I met him, but I'm not. I'm looking forward to meeting him again.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Like I said, one of the last Mohicans, as well as you, sir. Again, thank you so very much for your time. Look forward to meeting you and continued success. Former WWF champion and champion at life, clearly, Mr. Bob Backlund.
It's my pleasure, and have a great day, and looking forward to shaking hands.
All right, buddy. Take care, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. There will be more.